Welcome to the OHIO podcast, everybody. And as you can see, it's not just Chris and I today. We have a visitor. Shaun Lane, former Buckeye, is with us tonight. Shaun, thank you so much for being in. We're switching it up on everybody tonight. Usually the guest doesn't come to the second part of the show, but tonight you're front and center right off the bat. Shaun, thank you so much for being with us tonight.
Hey, man, I greatly appreciate the opportunity, man, that you guys even thought it was worth asking me to come on. I'm excited for tonight and to chop it up with you guys.
Hey, we appreciate that so much, and we're really looking forward to it, Shaun. So here's how we're going to do this tonight, guys. If you've got comments, feel free to just put those comments down in the comment section. We will or questions, and we will share those with Shaun. Right off the bat, we have Timothy Parks from West Tennessee. Welcome into the house tonight, Timothy. I'm guessing by Shaun's smile. Do you guys know one another?
I just seen it pop up. That was new for me.
Oh, cool. All right. There we go. Our buddy always listening in, Larry Daniels from down in sunny Central Florida. Thank you so much, Larry, for popping in. And it's a holiday weekend, all of you. So for those of you who are watching live tonight, thank you so much. Happy Memorial Day weekend, everybody. All right, Shaun, let's start here. Give us your recruiting story. How did Shaun Lane become a Buckeye?
Oh man, it's a actually fairly unique story in a sense that I grew up in Youngstown, Ohio. Went to Youngstown City School, and I transferred to a school called Hubbard. Um, got there, had a good junior season. I think I ran for like 2,100 yards or something, and a couple touchdowns. And I was in I was in the school. I remember sitting in class, and I said, "Hey," they come to my class and say, "Hey, you got a visitor here." So I get up and look up, and it's Tim Spencer, which Tim Spencer was a running back coach at that
Yeah,
time.
running backs coach. Yeah.
Yeah, and the strange thing, Tim Spencer, my dad played at Ohio State, and Tim Spencer actually played with my dad when they were at Ohio State together. So it was pretty cool to meet Coach Spence, and we kind of just chopped it up really, and had some good conversation. He already knew my family, of course, my grandparents and everything, and uh, but to fast forward to there was a junior day. They had junior day at Ohio State, and it was almost like right after they won a national championship in 2002. So the top juniors come up, and I'm in there. I'm feeling almost out of place. Like I felt like I was a good football player, but I wasn't really on the scene that much, and wasn't getting all the notoriety as some of the guys. You figured I had, Marcus Freeman was in my class, Ted Ginn was in my class. We had some guys that could ball. So come up to junior day. My high school coach actually brought me up because my mom had to work. And then Coach Trussell called me in the office, and he just offered me a scholarship on the spot again my junior year, right after they won a national championship. So it was really a no brainer. I grew up watching, of course, Ohio State football. My dad played at Ohio State, and I watched when like Eddie George was on the scene. That's when I really fell in love with the Buckeyes, and we didn't have cable, so anytime we got a chance to, Saturdays was important. You had Ohio State, and then I watched Notre. It was crazy. Ohio State was the first school to offer me, and once they offered me, I just shut it down with everybody else. I didn't. I didn't even. I mean, literally, I think Syracuse called the evening that I committed. I tried to commit right when they offered me, and Coach Trustin said, "No, we're going to see the president. And we'll be back next week, and then we'll get back with you." So it was a dream come true. So I wasn't even really interested in looking anywhere else. I was the first commit of my class, and I stuck with it. And I knew that's where I was going.
That's awesome, Sean. I'm a big Tressel guy.
Yeah.
I just finished reading his book again, the game plan or the book that he put together.
Yep.
Of course, you know that book just about better than anybody because you lived that book.
Absolutely.
Give me a Tressel story, man. It can be a good one, a good memory. I assume you probably still do. You still talk to Tress?
Oh, well, I'll tell you this about Coach Trussell. He has one of the best memories of anybody that I've probably ever met. He can meet, and I kid you not, any of his players, and he'll tell you their parents' names, the high school they went to, probably how many touchdowns they had in high school. Like he just knows it all. So anytime I hear him or see him, he already knows. Hey, how's your mom doing? How's Danella doing? Like he remembers everybody's name, and that was something that Coach Trussell would always do. One of the tests we would take in camp is your teammates' names, what high school they went to, and what city they're from. and based off of who finished in the bottom half, had to run more gassers at the end of camp. So he made it a priority for us to get to know each other, get to know each other's name. But back when I was at Ohio State, Coach Trussell was just a straightforward coach. He's probably one of the only coaches that I've met that wouldn't allow players to cuss. He wouldn't allow players to cuss on the field or coaches. He would say something, but at that time when I was young, and it seemed like every time I said something, he was always right behind me and would catch me. Hey, Shaun, do your mom know you talk like that? I'm like, I'm sorry, coach. No, she don't. But it transcends what's going on now. Like Coach Trussell was really, and I can see it now that I'm older, that he was looking to build men like that would go on beyond football. It was, I mean, we had John Maxwell come in and speak to us. I mean, and it's now I'm like, man, that was John Maxwell. But then it's like, man, I'm just trying to play football, coach, but he really invested us a lot and a lot of habits and disciplines that was established during that time. I still carry on in my life now. So, yeah.
What is the most memorable thing from the winner's manual that you still think about, contemplate, or maybe even use today that he instilled in you from that thing?
So the winner's manual, when we would get in there, the first thing we would do before camp, before practice, is quiet time, man. So it was 10 minutes, and whatever the topic was, whether it was gratitude, love, sacrifice, whatever the topic was, that there would be quotes, like 4 or 5 pages of quotes in there, and you just read through them. And again, it was a quick 10 minutes, and then afterwards, he would allow players to share what spoke to them, what spoke to their heart, or what they really felt that they read. And that's still something that I do now. I can hold on to a quote, man, when I see it. Like, oh man, that's good right there, and just taking that time at the beginning of the day. And this is before we did anything football related. As soon as we walked in, that was the first thing we did in our team meeting. Before we got to the X's and O's, we was really investing in ourselves. So that was probably one of the most memorable things in regards to winners, man, that we would take part in.
Yeah, that's awesome. We've got a question here from a listener. Larry Daniels says, Shaun, a favorite game or player memory that you have?
Favorite game or player memory that I have. So I was there when we had the Ohio State 1 Michigan 2 game. So I remember that it was the loudest I've ever heard that stadium. It was rocking, and if you remember early on, it looked like we was gonna run away with it. We was putting it on them; everything was working, and then I don't know how, some way or another, they ended up crawling back into it, and it ended up being a very close game. And that sent us to the national championship, winning that game. But that was probably one of my most memorable games being a part of. And then the crazy thing about that, the score 42-39, it was the pick four that night in Ohio. I don't know if anybody remember that, but it was
Yep.
actually 42-39 was the pick four. I don't play the lottery, but it just popped up that same night. So, yeah.
I remember with good reason.
Yeah.
I was going to say, he would know.
There we go. That's
Oh
awesome.
my gosh. Larry Daniels chimed in after that question. He says, it's amazing how Coach Tressel built men first, players second. It's so true. Like I read the winner's manual again just recently. It's still relevant. It
Hmm.
is still relevant. And now, Shaun, share with everybody what you're currently doing, because I mean, I'm sure that what he, what he instilled in you then, you're using today.
Yes, yes. So now I'm actually a location pastor at a church here in Columbus, Ohio. It's called Rock City Church, and we have four different locations: Whitehall, Hilliard, Polaris, and I oversee the Short North campus, which is about maybe a mile from Ohio State. So I've really been involved. I've been there for about 2 years in this position, and really been involved with getting connected with the student body at Ohio State, and just having a presence there to let them know there's so much more to life than just what college portrays, reading a book and going to parties, man. So it's been so encouraging and fulfilling in my current role of being able to invest and give back to Gen Z, if you will, is what I like to call them, the younger generations, and to see them really on fire for God. It's unique. I recall when I was growing up, I went to church a lot growing up. Believe me, I went a whole lot. I told a joke like when I got to college, I thought I had church credit, meaning I didn't have to go to church for a couple weeks or a couple months because I went that much, man. But so and I learned a lot about religion. I learned about the rules that I had to follow, and what not to do and what I should do, and you need to pray this much time, and you don't need to say this, and but I was missing the part about relationship. And it wasn't until really I got out of college that I understood the real importance of having a relationship with God as opposed to just following a religion, man. So, yeah, man, I really enjoy the opportunity that I currently have to just invest in people, man. People are so important, and just they're valuable. So, again, that's what I'm currently doing.
That's fantastic, man. That's a great testimony. We appreciate that. Donald Hoffer says, "What was your stance on Urban coming to Columbus after playing against him in 2006?"
Ooh, that's a
Woo!
great question, man. I couldn't stand that man until until I get you not, but I remember that beat like it was yesterday, man. We was down there in Arizona and played against them, and right after that Fiesta Bowl, I went back to we was staying at the hotel, went back to the hotel and went straight to sleep. Like I was crushed, after losing that first national championship. So I really couldn't stand him. But once he got to Ohio State. I figured he would bring some success because he had success everywhere he was prior. I mean, what was that, Bowling Green first in Utah and in Florida. And, by the time he got to Ohio State, I mean, I can't stand this dude, but if he going to help us win, I'm going to root for him. And that's what he brought to us. So, I root for him now. I'm a fan of his now. But before he got here, yeah, man, it wasn't probably too many good words coming out of my mouth talking about Urban Meyer. So,
Oh shoot! And you know what? If Urban were to see this, he'd probably smile and laugh.
he
I'm
probably
sure he
would.
would. Oh shucks! All right, Shaun. I'm gonna before I let Chris ask the next question, I'm gonna let you share your testimony with everybody in case you don't know how Shaun's career went. Man, he's got an incredible testimony about his career.
Yeah, man, I'll try to make it brief for you guys, man. When I got to Ohio State, it was a real unique situation, being that I wasn't really highly recruited. So I really fought the feeling of not feeling like I belonged there. We had a thing back then called like JJ Huddle, and that was like the social media. That's when everybody talked, and I probably spent too much time on there reading people's comments and taking it to heart. So when I got there, I felt like I really had something to prove, that I belonged there. So I worked my butt off. And then my sophomore year, going into I redshirted my freshman year, going into my red shirt, and then my red shirt freshman year, going into camp, I was a number two at corner, right behind Tyler Everett. And 2 weeks into camp, the coaches come to the room and say, "Hey, man, we're short on running backs. We need you to switch to running back." So
Mm.
I'm like, okay. And just so happened, the guy behind me was a dude by the name of Malcolm Jenkins. So, yeah, so they switched me to running back for the last week of camp. We go out. I forget who our first game was, but our second game, we playing against Texas. And Vince Young was a quarterback. We playing him at home. Tyler goes down the first quarter and gets hurt. Malcolm's starting for the rest of his career. And it was like, it was rough. First experience in that. And then later that year, I was still playing special teams. I tore my ACL at Minnesota, so I missed a good portion of that season. And it takes time to come back from an ACL injury. So by the time I really got back into playing and I was able to switch back to corner, I didn't start like at the top of the depth chart. I had to make my way back up. So here I am, third on the depth chart as a senior, and just try to make a impact any way I can or any way I could. So really threw myself all at special teams. That was an opportunity for me to get on the field. So giving my all, and then here we are at the Fiesta Bowl playing against Texas. Colt McCoy's a quarterback. 2009, January 5th, 2009, and second quarter of the game, we kick off to them, and I run down and I go to make a tackle. I make the tackle, but when I hit the guy, I just, I felt this. It was a numbing sensation, and it was a loud hum that I'd never felt before. And I remember one of my teammates, his name was Aaron Gant. He was out of Detroit, Michigan, picked me up to celebrate because I made the tackle. And I asked him, I said, "Aaron," I said, "where's my arm at?" And he said, "What?" I said, "Man, where's my arm at?" And he's like, yo, it's there, it's there. So he lays me back down. By this time, the training staff is running out. And I'm laying there on the field, man. I couldn't feel anything on the right side of my body. My arm, couldn't move my arm or my leg, just laying there. And by the grace of God, my leg just start twitching, and it came back to me while I was still laying on the field. But unfortunately, my arm never did. So I had to get rushed to the hospital, and just going through all that process. And it was diagnosed that I had what's called a brachial plexus injury, which in essence is the nerves that go from your spinal cord to your arm to, it sends a message from your brain to your arm. I had severed those nerves, so I can't get my body can't get the message from the brain to my arm, and it's the same injury that I'm not sure if you guys know of Inky Johnson, a motivational speaker now. Me and him had the exact same injury, and I actually spoke with Inky when I first had the injury. His was a year before mine, but they put me in contact. Ohio State's training staff put me in touch with him because they were good with Tennessee's training staff, and we talked a lot. And he was further along in a recovery process, but nonetheless, it was still hard. It was still hard to go through. It's still hard today. I never regained movement of my right arm. So again, that was January 5th, 2009. So I've really been having to navigate life with one functioning arm. Um, but the positive side of that, that I like to highlight, man, I've been forced to think in many different ways, like simple stuff, like trying to get all the groceries in the house on one trip. Just the creative stuff that you think of because you only have one arm. So I think that opened up my mind to different avenues, and I've been able to get involved and contribute to different movements and different projects because I just see life differently because I'm forced to. But I can't take away from the light that it was hard, and it still is hard. I'm not going like it's not, because I think what the hardest part is the nerve pain that comes with it. So that's something that you deal with all the time. Like it literally never goes away. It's
Mm.
worse sometimes than other. And I refuse to take any type of medication or anything. I've learned to just deal with it. But it was my story. And I share with other people. I like, man, your story is not for you. So whatever happened to me is not for me. So I'm not doing my story any justice if I'm not sharing with somebody
Mm.
else in the hopes to let them know that, man, is when it seems like everything that you worked for, everything that you built yourself up for, like that was my identity being a football player. And in the moment, it was all taken from me. In my very last game at Ohio State, had dreams of, getting picked up in the NFL as a free agent or whatever, but it was gone, in just a moment. So living with that, but being a beacon of hope to people that are going through stuff, and we all going through something, and nobody's situation is worse than anybody else's. We just have our own situations, but if I could just bring any sense of hope to people that you know, as bad as it seems, you can still bounce back, man. And I think I'm doing so much better now. I feel like I'm doing now spiritual. I know spiritually for sure, because that was part of me really creating and diving into my relationship with Christ due to that injury. I can't say that it would be the same if it didn't happen. I wasn't out there crazy or anything. I didn't, I would back then I would drink, but I never did any drugs or anything. But I don't know. I can't say where I would be now if this wasn't part of my story. So it really brought the best out of me. Strangely enough, it brought the best out in me, and it's hard to say I'm grateful for the situation that what happened, but I'm grateful for the person I became because of the situation.
I love that, man. Your story is not yours. It's for, it's to share with someone else. Dude, that's deep stuff. That's good preacher stuff right there.
Exactly.
From one preacher to another. I like
Yes, sir.
that.
Yep. Yes, sir.
Hey, this is pretty cool here. Chris, get ready with your question. But you got someone listening to you all the way from Australia. That's Matt Butcher. He's from Australia. Hey, lads, hope all is
Man,
doing well. That's pretty cool,
there we
man.
go. That
We're
is
reaching
sweet.
all the way down in the southern hemisphere. Chris, what kind of question you got for him, brother?
Well, first, I got a question for you, Eric. I don't know why I can't see a thing about what's going on, but yeah.
Oh, it's because you logged back in after you got dropped off. I'll take care of that right now for you, okay? But go ahead and ask your question.
Yeah. Okay. So, Shaun, you played with some tremendous players at Ohio State. Obviously, you mentioned Marcus Freeman. Um, I believe Brian Hartline was actually there for a short time while you were there as well.
Mhm.
You know, James Laurinaitis, I believe, may have crossed paths with you as well. Correct.
Yep, yep.
So, I mean, what is your take? First of all, um, I guess first thing, who was your favorite player to go against in practice? And second is, what would be your take on some of these guys as they've entered the coaching ranks in college football?
Yeah, so I think it'll be easier if I can substitute your question a little bit as who was the person I hated to go against the most, because
Sure.
in most cases that means that's the best player. So you had guys that like Santonio Holmes,
Yes.
because I played corner, so Santonio Holmes as a receiver, probably one of the most skilled receivers that I've ever seen in regards to speed and his technique, and he just was artful at what he did. Ted Ginn, of course, he just was.
Yeah.
You were very limited keeping up with him. If you didn't tackle the dude and get a pass interference, he was probably running by you. So the hope was that he was going to do a short route every time. Some of the most athletic guys that I played with, and I only played with this guy for maybe 1 year or two. And I seen him 2 weeks ago at a soccer game. My daughters were playing soccer. Bam Childress. I don't know if anybody,
Yeah.
but he was probably one of the most shiftiest, quickest, gifted players that I played against. Him and Ray Small. They kind of remind me of each other in the way that they, the way they navigated the field. But yeah, man, I played against a lot. I mean, Troy Smith was there. Again, Ted Ginn, Malcolm Jenkins, and I played. Malcolm was 1 year behind me, so I played,
Yeah.
4 years, 3 years with Malcolm, and James Laurinaitis came in the same year as Malcolm Jenkins. So we had some Vernon Golstons, and we came in the same year. So it was a lot of guys there. Now that I look back, and as far as the coaching, it doesn't surprise me that those guys are successful uh, in coaching. As you look at Ohio State and what they're being taught, I understand why, not only because I was there, but why so many good players are coming out. Because when I got there, the older guys were the AJ Hawks and Barbie
Mhm.
Carpenters and Slagos. So that's who, when I came in and Marcus Freeman came in, that's who he was looking up to. And those guys, excelled. But what they did was they brought the young players like under their wing and made them do everything with them, like the extra workouts. They were all coming in doing those type of additional things to improve their skills, and it just keeps continuing like that. So here you have AJ Hawk bringing in James Laurinaitis and Marcus Freeman, and they walking through everything with them. And the same thing for the next wave of linebackers, young dudes, and they walking. So it's the same thing that keeps cycling over and over again, and you just learn this unique discipline, not only how to work out, but how to watch film and to understand what the other team is doing. And it's the same thing with the DBs. I mean, when I got there, Dante Whitner
Mhm.
was there, and these guys. I mean, it's probably you shouldn't say now, but those guys would skip class to watch film. You know what I'm saying? They were that much into just knowing exactly what the other team was doing. Just students of the game. Still did good in class, but real students of the game. So when you learn how to approach football from that standpoint, not just the physical aspect of it, but the mental aspect of it, that translates right over into coaching, I believe, because now you can break down film, you can break down another team, and you can use the understanding that you have of being out there to come together and create a game plan. So again, I'm not surprised that those guys are having that level of success, and then what being under Coach Trussell and the unique focus on communication. Communication is key. And the older I get, the more I know that. But being able to speak and being able to relate and all that stuff, I think that's perfect reason example why Hartline, for example, is having a success he's having, bringing all. I mean, you got 15 5-star receivers there, and other guys still want to come. Like it doesn't make sense, but it works. It works. So
So, what is kind of your take on the state of college football right now? Given the NIL, the transfer portal, you just mentioned 15 wide receivers that are 5-star, and more wanting to come. What is your take on what's going on with the state of college football right now?
Um, it's a 50-50. So, and I'll relate it to my own experience. As far as the guys getting money, I think that I think that's very much necessary. I think the NCAA could have figured out a long time ago to where it didn't have to get to this point. The amount of money that they bring in for a given game, and I think it was somebody telling me that one of the Ohio State Michigans, I think they made $8 million in concessions at the concession stand. They could have used that money and paid for just so the amount of
Yeah,
money that was being brought in, I think could have, should have went to some of the players. Um, and I think back to my story, for example. So when I got injured, um, I was done. I had already graduated in December. The game was in January, and it was my last game. So once I got injured, I was off scholarship, and I had no money. I had nothing coming in, and I had to get government assistance just to survive. Ohio State didn't have an insurance policy that paid me disability or anything like that. I literally had no income coming in. So thankfully, she's my wife now, but she was my girlfriend at the time. She was working and supporting us. I'm
Mm.
trying to figure out how to live with one arm, but I had no money. I had no more money coming in. So being able to get paid at that time would have definitely helped me a lot in those particular situations. And I also understand the sacrifice that those guys are given, and what the potential that could happen out there. And making $1 million playing football is not that attractive to me no more. It's just not, because it comes at a great price, man. So those guys in the NFL, thank God for them. They've reached that master level of football, but they are risking a lot every time they step on that field. So, yeah, I think the NIL is it. They probably need to get a little more control on it, for sure. I think it's wild, wild west right now. Who has the most money? It's almost like, I don't know. I'm sure you guys remember, like when the NFL, the first pick quarterback would always get all this crazy money. So yeah, guys that ain't throw one pass in the NFL that's getting paid more guys that won 2 Super Bowls.
hmm
And it's kind of like that. Like until they get some type of grip on it, it's gonna be the wild, wild west, and throwing this money at these kids. And I think a positive thing, guys are not getting suspended, or coaching not get suspended for tattoos, and simple stuff like that. Because they made it pretty plain and clear when we were there. If you get a cheeseburger because you're an athlete, you're liable to get suspended. Like, you were not allowed to get any benefits outside of that a normal person would get. You were liable to get lose your scholarship. So yeah.
Eric, were you expecting something there?
Chris and I have had this argument for about that very thing on this show. I don't know how many times. Oh shoot, Shaun, you were a defensive back, man. I got to ask this question. I know we're up against the clock, but I got to ask this. As a former player, do you, and maybe you could educate us a little bit on this, but it seems like the fan base a lot will complain about a corner not turning his head to look for the football.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I know that that's not always the case. Like, depending on the situation, maybe, he plays through the play, through the football. But as a former player, do you ever say, man, get your head around? Like, does that ever happen?
Absolutely, man. Now there's times where, again, there's different coverages. You got cover two, cover, from 0 to 6. I mean, there's so many different coverages, and you ultimately have to play your responsibility. But there are times where guys should be getting their head around. Um, Cover zero, for example, which is the man under. So your job is to stay underneath the receiver. It looks like man coverage, but you got a safety over top, so you can let him get past you. You just kind of stay underneath so he doesn't do a curl or anything. So in those cases, it's kind of harder to get your head around because you're trailing them purposefully. So there are different coverages, where you're not going to get your head around. You're just going to play their hands, and try to bat it down. But the guys, I love my Buckeyes, man, but the DBs haven't been DBs lately, and I don't know if
Woo!
it's again, no
Fired.
hate,
Wow.
no shade on them, man, but even watching the game, I think my dad, when he played at Ohio State, he was a DB too, so he would always call me like, Dudes should be breaking long runs. You should have a DB back there that can run somebody down. I don't care if he's on the other side of the field, and it just hasn't been happening. I mean, you seen guys break off 70-yard runs here and there. We ain't even talking about the pass plays. But yeah, man, I think we have, and it's just my opinion. Again, I'm no expert. I'm just going from my experience. I think we have to play coverages that highlight the skill of the players that we have. We're getting good recruits in, but it's not the same as the 5-star. We getting the top of the top receivers in there. We're getting a few guys in there that are 5 stars as far as from a DB perspective, but something just ain't the math ain't mathing is the way I like to say it. And we just gotta, I think we have to play more coverages that highlight our players' skills until they can master man to man. If you're playing a cover three, then yeah, you're gonna give up the short routes, you're gonna give up the slants, but you ain't gonna get beat over the top. We were playing man coverage. Don't even get me started, man. I'm about to start talking about Michigan game, man. I'm sorry. Let me digress. Because we got beat in the same coverage every time they beat us deep, man. I'll just throw that out there. But at some point, you have to adjust. And yeah, the team that adjusts the quickest is normally the one that's successful. So I'm sorry,
There,
fellas. I got a little
that's
worked up.
that. I love the see. That's what I'm talking about right there. I love the
Oh
passion, my man.
man.
Hey,
Yeah.
Shaun, thank you so much for coming on, man. That
Yep.
this has been a lot of fun. Let me throw this comment up to you from Larry from Florida. He said, "Very happy to hear you've adapted and adjusted to a very significant injury. We celebrate your success."
Thanks,
I
Larry.
you know what? That's what's awesome about Buckeye Nation, man. We love hard together, which
There we
means
go.
we really suffer on a Saturday that don't go our way. We want to
Oh
blame
man.
everyone and everything under the moon, but we love hard together, and that's what makes us who we are. And I appreciate you being on and celebrate what God's done for you, man. That's awesome. I
Thank you,
praise the
man.
Lord for that. We'll have you back on again soon if that's all
Oh
right.
man, it was great, man. I really enjoyed my time, and thank you guys again, Chris and Eric, for allowing me on your platform and to share my story. And what you guys are doing is great, man. And if anytime I can come and help in any capacity, man, just please let me know.
Sounds good, Shaun. Thank you so much. You have a good night.
You as well. Thank you, gentlemen.
All right, brother. Thank you so much, man.